This time, Castel di Sangro come out of the hills to shock Italian football.
'Cause I'll stay a wild rover forever and more.
Hello and welcome to By Far the Greatest Team, a podcast in which football fans attempt the impossible to rank once and for all who is the greatest team of all time. My name's Dunn, as ever, making the case for Oxford United, and over there in the data hub, it's Jamie Rooney.
What an incredible story about the village people that go on and achieve incredible feats. Yeah, I mean, this is back to Racing Cup Calais and Mohan Bagan. We're in the place where I know you're very comfortable and I feel comfortable, apart from completely out of my depth in terms of having any finer detail. But luckily, it's not just us, is it, tonight?
Whenever there's an underdog team to be done, I would definitely say this is becoming your beat. Welcome back, Gus Chrysonis. How are you doing?
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me again. I'd love to be the underdog correspondent. That is my wheelhouse, I believe. When you said wondering who's the greatest team of all time, this is not going to be it.
If like some of us on the pod, myself and Jamie, you're not familiar with this team and it's not immediately ringing any bells with you, I can't recommend you stay with this story enough, because it is balmy. It's absolutely balmy. And it's incredible what they achieve. And along the way, they do it with quite some finesse.
The story is bonkers, isn't it? It's just like, I don't think anyone who's never heard of them is, they're about to have a treat of a story that at some point they'll think, oh, well, they made this thing up.
This team comes from nowhere. I mean, it comes from nowhere, both figuratively and literally. It is. So, I mean, they are I suppose, Gus, do you want to begin by explaining who Castel di Sangro are?
I could try. Right. So Castel di Sangro is a small town in the mountains of the Abruzzo area in Italy, not famous for its football, not famous for anything, I don't think, apart from this story, for any connoisseurs of football. I like the name as well, because Castel di Sangro is Castle of Blood. It's it's eerie. There is a castle at the top of the mountain, and then there's the nice town underneath. Heavily bombed during the Second World War. A very nice church survived somehow, and the town was built around again. And there was a football team created by a priest in the 1950s, trying to create that community from scratch again, starting, something for the people of the town. And they have been in the lower leagues for ages and ages and ages, until the mid to late 80s, where they start climbing the leagues somehow, again, with no actual investment necessarily or any big talent that somehow originated from there, just keep moving up.
I think that is one of the incredible things to this story, is that, with many of these stories, you can point to a very clear catalyst, and usually some kind of heavy financing of some kind. But it isn't with this team. And again, they are in a region. I know Italy quite well, and I've been lucky enough to go to, lots of bits of Italy. And I was kind of, hang on, where's Abruzzo?
It's pretty much in the middle. I mean, it's the bullseye of Italy. And Castel di Sangro is in the Apennines. Apennines, the mountain ranges in Italy. And it's pretty much right in it. You could draw a square from Foggia to Pescara to Rome to Napoli, and it's right smack bang in the middle. And Gus touched on it, the Second World War. It was a strategic position in the Second World War. It was right in the middle of the Gustav Line, which was the line held by the Nazis to stop the Allies from crossing. So by pure unfortunate positional factors, just purely for geography, the people of Castel di Sangro were absolutely decimated. Their town, their village, we should stress, we're talking about a village. Their village was decimated. And out of the ashes, the phoenix was this football club, a community football club, which is quite popular in Italy. And yeah, they started in the very lower reaches of the very complex. And I hope you're not going to ask me to explain it, Graham, Italian Football League pyramid.
Well, I am going to ask one of you two, and whichever you feels can make the best fist of it, of explaining, as I was kind of looking through, I kind of knew where they eventually got, but it's really difficult to find out how they get there.
I think the logic behind the madness of the pyramid that we can get into is because no one could afford travel. All the lower leagues are very local. That's the main reason for it being so localized.
There's 4 series. Serie A and Serie B and Serie C1 are essentially your professional levels. Serie C2 is when you've got a mix of professional clubs and semi-pros. And it breaks out into, I think, 9 regions in Serie C. So it's not as straightforward. We have tier 3 in the UK, League One, and it's one league.
It's 9 leagues at 2 levels.
Yes, exactly that.
Both at level 3.
And then if you get to Serie D, it's even more complex. I think there's 28 different regional leagues in what's considered the 4th tier, and there's 28 promotions as well, which is good, but you have to win your league in order to get promoted. It also means there's about 28 relegations, but relegations in Italy they're not always based on performance. It could be financial issues, it could be corruption. Graham, don't go there. I saw you leaning forward. Don't do it. Let's have a corruption-free podcast from an Italian team. Oh, damn, we can't.
Cannot be done.
Might as well turn it off now then.
Yeah, and then you got the Salenza, which is, I think, the 5th or 6th tier, and then it gets even deeper with, there are so many leagues, there are so many teams. I think it's fair to say that the Italian football pyramid is probably one of the hardest to navigate through. So, which makes the story we're going to talk about right now, a team that came from the very bottom that reaches Serie B, the 2nd level, an incredible story. And I will stress, a village.
Is this the? And I know, Jamie, you spend most of your evenings going through the population stats. One of your favourite of our statistics that we have. Is this the smallest team we have ever done in terms of population?
Castel di Sangro, I think, is around 5,000, 6,000, depending on where you take your population statistics from. Their football ground has a capacity of 7,000. So they have more seats in their stadium than they have people living in their village. Good away game to go to.
There is a statistic as well. When they made it to Serie B, in the first match, they had 3,000 people in. So 60% of the population of the town was in the stadium.
And that sounds like a burglar's paradise, doesn't it? Home match, 3:00 on a Saturday. You don't even have to prep. That's a 50-50, better odds than 50-50 that you're going to get lucky.
And when we touched that, they weren't even in the stadium in the town, but they had to go 100 miles away.
Yeah.
Because of the rapid ascension to the upper leagues of Italian football, the stadium wasn't fit for purpose.
Of course.
For Serie B. So, and they spend the summer kind of like
in the autumn and most of the winter.
In the autumn, and it's Italy, nice weather. We will do it at some point. So they spend the first 6 months of the season traveling. I think it's 100 kilometers rather than 100 miles, but traveling to the coast, to the northwest coast, in a town called Chieti. Mm-hmm. That had the required 10,000 seats until the added seats in their stadium were put in, and yeah.
And once those seats were in, I'm sure it was all plain sailing. There was no other further problems with the pitch.
No problem whatsoever. To go back a bit, before all that happened in Serie B, Castel di Sangro was really, again, a small town, poor generally, but some investment came in the form of Pietro Retta, who was a businessman from Napoli. I believe, in construction and in general business, that kind of business in quotation marks, that you don't ask the person that's in business what kind of business they're in. So I think he wasn't just the biggest football fan. He just knew that being involved in local football gives you political power and the power to control the masses to an extent and become important in the community. So he invested. He bought the club. He invested a little bit, but also as things go with smaller communities, he put his son-in-law in charge of the club as the president, and that would be Gabriele Gravina, who is, as we speak, the vice president of UEFA.
Yep.
But at the time, he was just a lawyer. He was just very ambitious, who managed, because obviously in a town of 5,000 people, football talent is scarce. You can't find, like, to sustain a football team and to actually compete and get promoted. You don't have the academies level to draw from. So what he did is he brought talent from local area, the neighboring villages, neighboring towns, and gave them jobs, gave them local jobs to justify their being there, and they could play for the team. So that is how, during the late 80s, the team started from the Terza Categoria to go up to the Eccellenza and then the Serie D and whatnot.
I mean, usually, exactly as you say, usually you get this kind of, when there's the hint of nepotism involved, that's usually the sign of a bad end to the story, isn't it? And obviously, it turns out to be a stroke of genius.
Well, right, so there
He's got ambition, that's for sure.
it's a bit of both, I think, as with a lot of people in power, and especially in football and in the news, and in a time where corruption, again, if you don't want to talk about corruption, the podcast will be a lot shorter. There was a lot of underhand and behind the scenes dealings that yes, brought prosperity to the club for a short amount of time, but it kind of seems that it brought prosperity to Gravina himself in the long term, because Castel di Sangro was known potentially to Italians for about a span of 2 or 3 years that we're talking about mainly, and then no one knows it again. Whereas Gravina has maintained his power and status.
You've got Pietro Rizza, he's the guy who's bankrolling the Neapolitan businessman. I mean, he shuns the limelight, and it's almost like he's got Gravina, his man, who's kind of steering the club in the direction of choice, but how they're doing it is kept firmly under wraps.
Complicated structurally system, but when this begins, they are in the 9th tier, is that right, essentially?
In the early to late 80s, they've moved from the 7th, they're in the 7th tier. So when Rizza and Gravina come on board, they're in the lower reaches, and it's very difficult to have ambitions that you're going to be in the 2nd tier, knocking on the door of probably the greatest football league in the world at that moment. Why did Rizza and Gravina, why did they pick Castel di Sangro in the middle of this godforsaken place high up in the mountains where it's cold and depressing, I think, other than the food, which is never depressing in Italy?
I don't think it was intentional. I don't think they started with the ambition to move through the leagues. I think Reza was, like you said, about the strategic location of the village. It's close to Napoli, it's close to Pescara, it's close to a lot of different quality towns that might in the business of Reza he might have had interests in. And then his niece and his son-in-law are just they're just there for the ride, I think, to begin with. And I don't even know, in the book it doesn't, those are the questions that remain unanswered, is that I don't think they even knew how they managed to become successful in football up until it happened. That's why it's called the miracle of Castel di Sangro, because it wasn't planned. It wasn't like we're going to build on something we have planned and we're going to see it through. It just happened. By 1989, they managed to get to Serie C2, which is the fifth, I guess.
Level 4.
Level
Fourth
4?
tier. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
fourth tier.
Yeah, 'cause 3 has two.
C2. So yeah, it's that complex. Let's not talk about the pyramid again.
So C2.
Are they? Is this still an amateur league? Are they still amateur at this stage, or have they made the switch? Because at some point, presumably, they have to go professional.
I think they're amateur in C2, and if they get promoted to C1, they become a professional. So as an amateur, they maintain in C2, and pretty much everyone possibly expects them to go down again. That could be their ceiling for that time. But our main protagonist in terms of management comes in, Osvaldo Giacconi, 93-94 season. And while they're struggling in the relegation zone, he manages to finish in the 7th place. Just very, very good result. So a little bit about Giacconi, I guess. He's a journeyman manager, mostly lower leagues, C2 again, C1 at the time. But he finds himself in Castel di Sangro. He manages to finish 7th. And then the next season, even though again everyone expects them to struggle, somehow he finishes 2nd, takes the team 2nd, and they get promoted to C1. And at that point, that's the beginning of the original miracle. Again, the expectations have been surpassed twice over by this point. No one thought they would ever make it to C2, and now they're in C1. Somehow, in the season of 1995-96, he managed to take the C1 by storm and finish 2nd and go into the playoffs. And that's where the original miracle happened, because they play in the playoffs. They play a town called Gualdo first, and they draw 0-0 the first match, and the second match they're losing 1-0. So the dream is about to be done. Everyone's ready to go home. And then Giacconi has an epiphany to substitute in a player who's only played 7 games that season, I believe, and put him in the last 20 minutes. And literally about a minute later, he scores the equalizer. And because that's for you, Jamie, because you love those sort of things with the second matches and that sort of thing. So both teams have scored 1 goal each.
Yeah.
Because Castel di Sangro had finished higher in the league, they're the ones that go into the second.
I think this is a perfectly
Yeah.
good rule, and I think it's very sensible that. And I've often thought this in the English pyramid with the playoffs. When a game is tied, the advantage should go to the team that finished higher.
I mean, I've always thought playoffs should be 6th plays 5th, winner plays 4th, the winner plays 3rd.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good. That could catch on. That could catch on. I mean, Osvaldo Giacconi, you're absolutely right. He's a journeyman. He's a bit, I guess, probably unfair. He's the Claudio Ranieri of the lower leagues. Doesn't really.
The Italian Neil Warnock.
The Italian Neil Warnock. Yeah, very much, because he was pragmatic. He's very defensive in his style, very tactical. Often played a 3-5-2. You know, I've come to ask greatest formation in the history of the game, isn't it? I've got to believe that. But yeah, he was a man that backed himself. You know, considering he never got the big profile job, he made some incredible decisions. And yeah, the substitution of bringing in his defender who hasn't played all season when they need a goal.
But it's not the promotion yet,
No.
because they go into the final.
I'm jumping ahead now. Yes.
And that's the thing. Gualdo, no one knows, and unfortunately for them, and I apologize, still no one knows who Gualdo are.
Mm.
But they have to play Ascoli in the final for promotion to Serie B. Now, Ascoli had been to Serie B in the last decade or so before that. So they are a team that are there or thereabouts. They're not a tiny village team. But somehow they manage to be 0-0 the entire match. They keep them at bay, and the match goes to penalties. And then again, Giacconi has the greatest of epiphanies of all time. he substitutes his starting goalkeeper that has started every minute, that has played every minute that season in every match. He takes him out and puts in a pretty much at that point semi-retired backup goalkeeper called Pietro Spinoza. And again, like the doubting of the crowd would have been incredible. Be like, well, how? Why? But yet he manages through the penalty shootout. Spinoza saves the last penalty, and that's when they get promoted to Serie B for season 96-97.
He's a pioneer. I mean, this is something which is still pretty rare and unusual. But obviously, we started to see it creeping. Pepper in the Carabao Cup final is probably the most high-profile one people can think of. But it's something that is becoming a little bit more commonplace. I'm going to ask you, Jamie, an impossible question. Is he the first one to do it?
It's the first one I can find that's done it. Obviously, it's even more unusual in the 90s because generally most teams in most leagues would only had 2, possibly 3 substitutes on the bench. I can't, maybe Serie C in the mid-90s was different and maybe you could have more substitutes on the bench. But obviously as the benches have grown, you've been able to have the luxury of having a substitute goalkeeper on the bench, or 2 in some cases, which teams have done. Yeah, it has happened. And generally it's worked. I mean, I can think of a few cases where it's worked and I can find a few cases where it worked, but there's also a couple of cases where it hasn't worked. But generally, I don't know whether that's down to the psychology of the whole piece, whether the reserve goalkeeper's been prepped the whole time. Right, you're going in. This is for you. You're the man. This is what you, and the fans get the lift, and the opponents, are they like, oh my God, why have they brought this guy in? He must be a penalty specialist. It's an interesting thing to do by a coach, but I think Ciccone is probably the first that I can think of that's done it.
That's the thing that makes it this really bizarre, because yes, you usually put, like, if you have a penalty specialist on the bench and it goes to penalty, you do that like you mentioned, Jamie, when
Louis van Gaal.
Oh yeah, put the Tim Krul in instead of Jasper Cillessen. But at that level, when you clearly believe in your starting goalkeeper and no one knows, I mean, he might have known that Spinoza was better at penalties, but even when he was asked later, no, he never said that. He never said that was a planned move. I knew what I was doing. He was saying, like, who knows? Literally, his response was, who knows what made me do it? But that's the decision I made at the time. But it might be that psychological and mind game of like, oh, why is that goalkeeper there? Although they did shoot about 8 penalties each team, so it wasn't that. It was a clear,
goalkeeper that makes the final save. It is the goalkeeper that completely confirms your convictions of making this change, whether it's instinct or planned or not. But it's a brave thing to do. And, Van Gaal did it, as we mentioned. Graham Arnold did it when Australia qualified for the 2022 World Cup. The goalkeeper, Matt Ryan, was replaced by Andrew Redmayne, and Andrew Redmayne was a massive character in goal, really intimidating with a big beard, and it definitely played into the psychology of the opponent. And incredibly, there's a guy called Felix Omondi, a manager for Nigeria, who did it twice in the same tournament. In the 2004 Africa Cup of Nations, Dele Ayenuba came in for the semi-finals and finals as a substitute goalkeeper in penalty kicks and was the hero. Obviously, there's a few cases where it hasn't worked. Mauricio Sarri tried to get Kepa out of goal, and Kepa was having none of it. But my favourite failure, Graham, I don't know if you know this, because this is lower league stuff. Martin O'Neill, the wonderful, wonderful Martin O'Neill, he was in a playoff final, and he decided to replace Calac with Kevin Poole moments before it was due to go to penalty kick.
Wow.
Moments after he made the replacement, Crystal Palace actually scored a legitimate goal and stopped the game going to penalty kicks. So the decision backfired on Martin O'Neill there in that particular instance at Leicester City. But yeah, I mean, they're the ones I can think of. I don't know if there's any more kind of lower league ones, Graham, that you've seen where keepers have been replaced.
No, I mean, it will have happened. It will have happened somewhere, and there will be, of course, what you remember is when it's worked rather than when they've made the change, and the keeper hasn't touched any of them, and they've lost anyway, which tend not to get remembered in history. But yeah, incredible to this. I mean, Ciccone is someone who obviously is not afraid of taking a rogue and random decision, and we've seen that in bringing the defender on in that previous game as a kind of not quite last roll of the dice, but almost a. And there's definitely something for doing the unexpected.
And I think all three of the characters we've mentioned so far, so Reza, Gravina, and Ciccone, it feels like the stars have aligned for them to be in that moment at that time, because they all kind of go with the flow, have a vibe for what's happening, and they make it work without a solid plan. They just happen to be at the right place, the right time for that.
It's definitely vibes management, isn't it? And with that one,
which you would expect, I think, in lower leagues in Italy, it would be the same in Greece. Like it's all vibe.
What isn't or shouldn't be unexpected is that Ciccone has secured 2 promotions in his first 2 full seasons there, because he's a man with a track record for promotions.
Yeah, he is. You brought this to my attention, and I did a bit of research. Apparently, Osvaldo Ciccone, the manager we're talking about, who's gone on these incredible promotions with Castel di Sangro, I think is the record holder in professional football with the most promotions. I think 11. It'd be great to hear from anyone who's listening whether there is somebody who's got more. 11 is incredible. If you're a coach for 22 years, you're getting promoted every other year. You might be getting relegated every other year as well with that record, which, gives you the advantage of potentially adding to that tally. But 11 promotions is pretty brilliant.
What he isn't doing is, with the exception of this team, actually, is he's not staying somewhere and getting multiple promotions. So his Wikipedia page is great to look at, because it's just a massive list of clubs.
It's a very long list.
He's at them for like 1 or 2 years. I worked out that, and you can't really. There are no sort of. There's not full dates. It's just season. But I basically worked out across 40 seasons, there are only 2 seasons where he wasn't managing someone. But this, he's only at Castel di Sangro for 5 years, and that is his longest stint anywhere.
I think that statistic is a little bit skewed, only because, you'd think of the great managers, if they get the promotion to the top league, then they stay in the top league.
Yes.
So they don't get to have more promotions after that, or even in the second division or third division. But he seems to be going, C1, C2, C1, B, C1. So he plays between the leagues, but the fact that he's good at, like, he's a promotion specialist. As instead of a goalkeeper in penalties, he's a promotion specialist. Like, you would get him in if you have a team that's chasing promotion again at that level, possibly.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he kept, during those years in Castel di Sangro, the core of players has remained the same throughout, probably from C2 to C1. And now when the big jump into the top leagues of Italian football happens, there comes the question of, are they going to invest more in better quality players to remain there?
Absolutely. So the big challenge is to come. Serie B do it. Their debut season and following season has some style about it. And we'll hear about that after the break. And we'll also be able to have a bit of fun with their kits as well.
Do you have a team in mind that you'd like us to cover? Well, just don't keep it to yourself. Let us know. You can get in touch with us across the socials on X or Blue Sky. Graham is at Said and Dunn, and I am at Couch Pundito. That's on X and formerly known as Twitter, and also on Blue Sky. Remember, greatness isn't just the big and famous. We love a cult classic, and we love a good underdog story too. And also, watch this space. Some new channels coming your way.
So welcome back. We're talking about the little known or little little team of Castel di Sangro. And before we go on with that, anyone watching this on YouTube will be curious as to the shirts on display here. So, Jamie, what is the shirt?
Well, I know that Gus isn't curious. That's for sure, Graham. Yeah, so I thought I'd make Gus feel super welcome. He's part of by far the greatest team football family now. And we're looking forward to doing many more episodes. So I thought I'd wear a Panathinaikos shirt, to make him feel very welcome that, we love having him on and we've adopted his, or at least I've adopted his team. But then I didn't realize I was going to get totally and utterly trumped.
I got the actual shirt. I mean, it's not a match worn shirt, but it's Soviet jeans, Castel di Sangro, 96, 97.
It's an absolute beautiful football shirt, and it's very of its time as well.
Yeah.
That is classic 19 football kits right there. Loads of lines, loads of stuff going on, confusing sponsors, collars. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful football kit, Gus. Congratulations.
Thank you, but also congratulations to yours. I love that. Can't lie.
I don't think I can ever add any other Greek team to my collection, so I think I'm going to have to stop at one.
No, I'll allow anything else other than the Reds. Anything you can have any other team you want.
I feel like we're kind of murking into Harry Potter, the team that cannot be named.
No, never.
Absolutely loving the shirt and loving the Soviet jeans sponsor, which is absolutely
incredible,
absolutely spectacular.
That brand still exists actually as well. It's not just jeans now. I think it's like just called Soviet, and they have all sorts of different apparel.
Absolutely brilliant. So we're talking about this team, and we've referenced this already a little bit, but we should give it a proper introduction because I think one of the reasons that people know this story, and if you look on the wiki page for Castel di Sangro, every reference comes from this book, and it's an extraordinary book. And it's actually quite extraordinary that this guy ended up writing, actually, because Joe McGuinness, kind of better known for, sort of proper dark investigative journalism and stories within in the States, and he ends up writing the definitive book, and he basically follows the club for this season, doesn't he?
So American author Joe McGuinness, who had written about some politician and a scandal and a serial killer, things like that. He was about to write about O.J. Simpson, and he turned down the opportunity because he found out about Castel di Sangro making that jump, and he had been a fan of Italian football since the World Cup '94. Baggio and that team that almost made it. So he literally turns down a very, very high profile job to travel to Italy in the middle of nowhere and follow the team for 9 months and train with them, as in follow them while they train and talk to them and document that entire experience. And we kind of owe it to him because otherwise pretty much 70-80% of all the details we have would have been lost as any other normal Serie B team doing their thing.
And he obviously had an eye for a story, and in fairness, they didn't him down.
They didn't disappoint.
As you sort of mentioned, there's a lot of prep for this. So they presumably they are now professional. But they have this work on the ground, as you say, that needs upgrading to get there. And even once that's done, don't they have sort of a problem with the fertilizer on their actual pitch?
The work on the stadium takes a long, long time. It was supposed to be ready probably September, October time, and it is actually open in December. And at that point, they used a cheaper fertilizer, and they put too much in the combination with the rain and the cold, the frosty conditions. It made a sheet on top of the playing field, and it was squelchy and stuff, which they used actually to their advantage, and they beat Genoa 1-0 in in the 1st of December.
Taking lessons from John Beck. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They had to use. We haven't mentioned any star footballers because there weren't any. So throughout the book and throughout all the highlights you can find, the quality of football is not great. They were literally they would base their entire season on the potential of hope, they would call it. They would try to get some points from each match, and they would, like, by the skin of their teeth, get like some draws and some wins. But weirdly, they have some really, really good games, not score wise or quality of football, but they beat opponents that they shouldn't, technically. They shouldn't be able to, because they were favorites to go down by a long shot. But for example, they beat Padova, where Walter Jenga is in goal in his later years. And actually, it was his last season in Italy before he moved to the USA, or New England Revolution, to play under Thomas Rongen, who was the Next Goal Wins fame manager.
Yeah.
He was looking into buying Lotti, Massimo Lotti, the goalkeeper of Castel di Sangro, and he actually took Jenga. So they beat them.
I think, Gus, while you're just taking that, just to kind of give some context, their first season in Serie B, it's probably worth noting some of the teams that they're going up against. There's a 20-team league, Serie B, teams that everyone will recognize: Genoa, Torino, Palermo, Bari, Empoli, Brescia. They're all in this particular league. Teams that have been in Serie A not so long ago, Foggia and Venezia as well. So these are big Italian football teams that are quite accustomed to playing in the top 3 tiers down to C1 of the Italian football structure. Genoa and Torino are giants. I mean, we've covered them on this podcast as 2 Italian giants. So yeah, Gus, you're absolutely right. I mean, they're given pretty much zero chance to survive in this league. And I think the general expectation is that they're going to go in terms of the lowest total.
And I think it's worth saying that 4 teams go down in this league as well. So you're talking about a 20-strong league with 4 relegations. So like a fifth of the teams in the league will get relegated. So, the odds aren't great at the best of time. It's sort of difficult to tell, but I mean, I was curious about the home thing, because obviously once they move into their ground, which I would I was going to imagine, playing in a relatively small ground in kind of the middle of nowhere does have some sort of kind of advantages to it. And I was quite struck when I looked, if I've done my maths right, they win 12 games that season and 11 of the wins are at home. So there's something about the home record, but is it all the more impressive to have carried that over not actually being at their home ground?
Yeah, they managed to make the ground in Chieti a bit of a fortress as well by the time they get their own home back. But I think it's unsettling for the other teams to go into the mountains, to go to a place where they've never been before. And again, they just fight to their maximum of their abilities to get those points. We could possibly mention a few players that are critical for that season. So Massimo Lotti is probably the most well-known, arguably along with Bonomi, who we'll get into in a minute. So the goalkeeper, Massimo Lotti, who came from C2 as a backup goalkeeper. But because, again, Giaconi had De Iulis, the goalkeeper from the previous season, who played every minute, and he was one of his kind of favorites. But he was carrying over a ban for the first match. So the first match Castel di Sangro plays in Serie B, Lotti is in goal, and they win 1-0, and Lotti has a fantastic performance. So Giaconi's hands are kind of tied to carry on using him, and he carries on playing fantastically. Even later in the season, when he reverts back to using the Ulis, he gets pressured from Gravina and Retta to put Lotti back in, because Lotti's performances didn't warrant like taking him out. It's just like playing favorites. That's a very good starting point, having a goalkeeper that you can trust and again, right place at the right time because he had no experience in that level before, but he just made it his own. And then there is Giacomo Bonomi, who's arguably the best outfield player in that squad. He was potentially moving to Fiorentina at one point during the season. He eventually got there later in his career, and he did play for Torino as well. So he did have possibly the most significant career out of the main players of that season. There's also Spinazzi, who was 19 at the time, on loan from Inter. He didn't have the career later to justify Inter's interest, but at the time he seemed like a very good future prospect to have at a small team like Castel di Sangro, and he did score a few goals. But that's pretty much it.
I think this just reinforces the fact that, you know, this team, this village team that's playing in the second tier and the Italian professional system in the kind of the second and third tiers. But yeah, there's no one recognizable in terms of like from world renowned fame in terms of the playing staff that is available to play for this football team.
What they do have, and it's apparent throughout the book, is that they have that sort of family atmosphere as a team. So all the single players would eat at the same restaurant for lunch and dinner. And sometimes the married players would come as well. And Giacone would be there because his family was in a different city, were living there. And that tavern was called Marcella's because Marcella was running it. And it was just a big family situation because Marcella would be taking their mail, their phone calls. They would meet there to watch World Cup on TV or anything that was important. That's where the press conference of the big signing coming up happened. So that actually happened before they moved into the new stadium as well. That was the inaugural game on the big stadium. So in November time, while again the core of the players was the same throughout, like for the past 3 years, pretty much, apart from loaning in Spinazzi and getting Lotti from C2. So nothing major. But somehow in November, it was announced that Gravina has secured the services of Nigerian striker Robert Raku Ponik, who played for Leicester City. I'm pretty sure you've heard of him. He's a legendary striker. We have to remind ourselves that it's 1997. The internet is not, well, 96 actually. The internet is not a big thing yet. There's not much.
It's a very big press conference, isn't it? I mean, they've rolled out everything all in sundry for this press conference for this major signing that's coming from England, a professional, international, massive goal scorer, Nigerian, and the whole media is there to greet their new star player.
To give them that boost to remain in Serie B. And he is very confident in the press conference. He says all sorts of things. It's not just about not being relegated. We're gonna go up. We're gonna go into Serie A. I'm gonna score all the goals. And also I'm gonna sleep with all your wives. And
yeah, he definitely makes a reference that he's probably not going to be joining the singles at Marcelo's Tavern because he's got other things on his mind for some of the players that aren't actually going to be there.
Yeah, exactly. So he gave it really big about the potential success that's about to come. So then there is a friendly match to introduce him to the team. And actually, no one knows who the opponent is. Usually there is some announcement that we have a friendly match against so-and-so. But no one knows who the other side is. So then they take to the field and Robert Ponik starts running around. He's not waiting for a pass. Rather than he just chases after the ball and pushes even his own teammates off the ball to then take and score. But it's painfully obvious from the beginning that he's not good, to put it mildly. And then he tackles one of his teammates and I think he gets a yellow card for it, for tackling your own teammate. And then
New signing isn't working out so well, is it?
and everyone is a bit baffled at in the audience. And then the referee awards a penalty, and he argues with a regular penalty taker to take the penalty. And then he pretends to trip and fall and hurt himself. And while the goalkeeper is not paying attention anymore because the penalty is not being taken, he gets up and scores the penalty. So everyone is actually like really, really confused at that point of what is going on. And then suddenly the entire opposing team starts clapping and taking bows. And it turns out they're an acting troupe. And Robert Ponick is an actor from London.
Yeah. He couldn't dribble. He couldn't pass. He got sent off. It was almost like he wasn't a footballer.
Yeah. So it was all a publicity stunt to get more media attention to Castel di Sangro. But that was Gravina's idea.
Yeah, I mean, what does that reveal about Gravina in terms of his leadership style as well? That he's prepared to do this incredible publicity stunt. So you've got the stadium issues that we've talked about. You've got this incredible promotion, a village team going into Serie B, the second tier. You know, in a season that's already stranger than fiction, you've got this incredibly wild publicity stunt. To just generate more interest in this football team during the season as well. It's not even like a pre-season thing.
No, but the thing remains the same, that the team is not actually being reinforced on the pitch.
No.
Just for clarity, you said Robert Penick, who we're talking about. He was an actor from London.
Yeah,
He's
an actor. So Gravina's ploy was just for media attention, but then now you have the attention, what are you going to do with it? Because there's still nothing to show for it. And so the team still struggles with the same players, same level of players. And then tragedy strikes, unfortunately, because in December, after a matchup there was a drab 0-0 until the 94th minute where they get scored against. So they lose the match right in the last second. And on the way home from Venice, two footballers, Danilo Di Vincenzo and Pipo Biondi, die in a car crash. Biondi was a substitute mostly because he was really young, but Di Vincenzo was one of the revelations, possibly, if we could say there was any revelations of the season, because he was kind of a regular threat up front as a striker. So that really puts a downer into the season. He really makes everyone.
I mean, it puts everything into context, doesn't it, really? I mean, the craziness that's going on in terms of this football team and how it's operating in the second tier Italian football, you get this absolute moment of clarity in terms of what's real and what is make-believe. It's an incredible, sad tragedy. The madness of this season. And I mean, going back to Joe McGuinness, I mean, how could he predict that he's going to be eating and drinking and training with this football team through this incredible season where it's a Hollywood script?
It's everything.
This has got much more depth than Welcome to Wrexham.
Exactly. With all these things are going to happen. And he says, actually, in one of the first chapters, he says that if the team was to be demolished every week by the opponents, his experience would have been a much more boring one overall. But he went in with the hope that it would be interesting on the pitch. But actually, it was okay on the pitch, not the most interesting football played. But off the pitch, it was madness. From positive stuff to negative stuff to things that you would never predict. And that's another example. After that, in February time, the starting left back was arrested for cocaine trafficking. So
yeah, you couldn't make it up.
So this season has been from one shock to the next. And throughout this, they've managed to stay above the 16th place that gives them that potential of staying up.
I can't help but want to go back to Robert Ponick And just ask the question. I mean, so this, as you, Gus, you set it up. This has happened in the mid 1990s, and there's no internet. It's difficult to do your research and your due diligence on new signings. Think a hoax of that nature could be possible these days? I mean, bearing in mind that you can control your own Wikipedia page if you're a professional, and you can embellish it. And there are footballers that have embellished their Wikipedia page to suggest that they've had bigger careers than what they really had. Do you think it's possible that such a PR stunt could happen in the modern game?
I personally don't. I think there's so many outlets now that even if you manage to like inflate some of them, someone is gonna double check and triple check. But we're talking in the mountains of Italy, where there's an anecdote in the book where when Joe McGuinness first arrived in Italy, he didn't speak Italian, not like apart from a few words. But the local newspaper came to interview him. So he managed to say, grazie and like a few words and molto something, good luck. And then the next day the paper had a massive article with questions and answers that he gave supposedly in Italian. So he asked one of his translators, they're like, what if they're going to make it up? Why even interview me? Why didn't they just write it straight away? And the translator went, well, no, that's not possible. First interview, then make up. So I think that was the mentality as well. Like, it was a fertile ground for that kind of hoax to pass. Whereas now you can't really, with all the media scrutiny that there is, you can't really just invent something and not have it double checked,
It is extraordinary the number of things that happen. Thinking about Gigi Prete, the guy he's arrested for cocaine smuggling, and he's detained for I think it's 22 weeks, isn't it, before acquitted. I just like to think on the Italian CFAX page at the time or whatever it was, when they had the team news, they'd quite often go, the Chialotti is a doubt hip injury in bracket. Preti, cocaine smuggling, still arrested.
Yeah. I think his wife was in on the thing and arrested with him. And I don't think she got acquitted, bizarrely. And I think that in the book, it makes it sound that Senor Rezza had something to do with the acquittal, pull those strings in business to get one of the starting players off the hook. And again, unaware of those sort of things, which makes again like his ascension to the upper echelons of football now is again kind of like maybe football is not the cleanest of sports when it comes to that sort of thing. But again, what a season! Like they keep going at it, and fate throws them curveballs.
Yeah, with everything going on, we forget that they're actually competing to try to stay in the second tier of Italian football. Could be knocking on the door to join the giants of world football at that particular moment.
Yeah, and the highlights of the season could be that they actually managed to beat Genoa twice. So they beat them 1-0 in the first round, and then they beat them 3-1 at Genoa, which is one of the few matches that has full highlights on YouTube.
Brilliant.
And it was, full highlights, the 3 minutes of the goal. Don't expect anything extended. But, and it was I think, again, it's because of the weather, because they're used to playing in terrible conditions. It was a massive storm at Genoa that night. Everyone is like absolutely drenched to the bone. But in those conditions where the hard men of the Abruzzo Mountains can get a result.
It's really significant as well because Genoa finish in fifth. The top four go up into Serie A, and they finish on fifth with 61 points, and in fourth place is 62 points. So it was critical for Genoa to pick up points in those two games against Castel di Sangro. So Castel di Sangro have inadvertently stopped a giant of Italian football from returning to the top tier.
And actually, we're getting closer to the end of the season now, where Castel di Sangro need one win to secure the salvation to remain in the league. And that comes in a home match against Pescara, who could be considered the local rival because they are very close, so even though they don't have any history against each other. In Pescara's goal is a very young Morgan De Sanctis playing for the under 21 of Italy at the time, and obviously having a great career in front of him. But they do manage to beat them. The second goal, they go ahead, they get equalized, and the second goal that gives them pretty much the points needed comes from a rocket by Bonomi outside the area to secure their salvation to the league. And that is the happy ending. Well, it's not the ending, but it's the happy outcome of the season, because through the stadium not being ready, the hoax of Robert Ponick, their teammates dying, but that brought them together, and the cocaine scandal, and there's all sorts of other smaller.
And I think, Gus, there's also, I mean, coming full circle, and I'm the one that's starting this, there is links to potential corruption as well. Because as I mentioned, Genoa miss out on promotion by a point, and they miss out on a promotion by a point to Bari, who finished third. And I think in the final game of the season, so I think Joe McGuinness, this has not been proven, but I think he overhears, not that his Italian was, it probably would have been fairly proficient at this point, but still, you know,
right, yeah.
where he's got the colloquialisms, I don't know.
So, spoiler for the book. Yeah, so now that Castel di Sangro has secured their staying in the league, there is a hush conversation about the last match. And he's quite excited to go into the last match, and he's told to, better stay behind. And he doesn't get it. He doesn't, because he's quite throughout the book, he's very direct. He speaks his mind. Sometimes, like, he's kind of like scared of his own, like, bravery of that kind, because obviously speaking your mind against someone with power like Bretzer might get you in trouble. But he is very vocal about his thoughts. So he does go to the last match, and the night before, he overhears some players saying, "So we have to lose 3-1. They're gonna score 3 goals, and then we're gonna get a penalty." So he hears that, and obviously that is exactly what happens. And he pretty much packs up and leaves. The relationship is broken down with all the players that he came to actually be really friendly, really like a family with. So the book doesn't have a happy ending, actually, because it's literally it. It's a very abrupt, very, very sad ending. See, someone cynical would say that it's just football in Italy in the 90s. Don't get too worked up about it. But obviously, someone that comes from an entirely outsider's point of view, and loving the game for what it was, and seeing that true story come to life, and positive story come to life, and then having that taken away from you by the insinuation that then owners can make deals between them when they need to. So that is what propelled Barry to fourth place and Genoa missing out, in that season. And that is where Castel di Sangro finishes that year.
One place above the relegation zone, and they're secure, and they'll be having a second season in Serie B, but without, as you rightly said, without Joe McGuinness. He'll be watching from afar 97-98 season.
And all the miracles and all the crazy things that happen come to an end kind of abruptly too, because the second season of Castel di Sangro in Serie B is as the first one was supposed to be. So they the team gets kind of dismantled. A lot of players are sold and not replaced. That has it affects the results on the pitch. So they start losing and losing and losing. Giacconi gets fired mid-season, and they end up 20th with a record low.
think 32 points. They only win 5 games all season, and they're conceding far more goals than they did in their first season in Serie B.
So yeah, so the fairy tale is over, and they go back down to C1. But there are a few now. I have some anecdotes to share with you of what happens next in the next year.
Excellent.
So first of all, a handful of players from the Castel di Sangro squad of 96-97 managed to earn promotion to Serie B again, this time with Fermana Calcio, a team from Fermo, which is a town not as small as Castel di Sangro, but about 30,000 people. So it was Prete, the cocaine trafficking guy, D'Angelo, Di Fabio, and Cristiano. The latter one, Cristiano, is actually the current manager of Castel di Sangro.
Wow.
They really did get the band back together quite quickly, didn't they?
Oh, wait, that's not even it. Let's wait. Listen to this.
There's more?
There is more. So in 99, they have a good run at the Italian Cup where they beat Perugia and Salernitana. And then they play Inter for round of 16, I think. It's just the round before the quarterfinals. And they managed to only basically the aggregate score was only 2-1 to Inter. So they draw one game 1-1 and they lose another 1-0. Now, some players of that team, 98-99, at striker there was Vincenzo Iaquinta, who played
Oh, yeah.
Italy later. But
Yes.
more importantly, and this is the one that you're gonna like, I believe, in goal was Carlo Cudicini.
Cudicini, fantastic. Yeah.
Chelsea
That
Player
is
of the Year,
pretty impressive.
2002. His transfer to Chelsea came from Castel di Sangro.
Wow.
So he, for a couple of years.
How the hell did Chelsea have scouts in the middle of nowhere in Italy looking at lower tier teams? I mean, must be a fluke or somebody in the know.
Yeah, Carlo
Wow, that's
Cudicini
incredible.
was in that Castel di Sangro that made the Coppa Italia run. And then they carried on falling through the leagues up until 2005, where the club went bankrupt and reinstated with a different name. At that point, Claudio Bonomi came back to play for the team in 2005 for a couple of years. It didn't make much difference. It's just the romantic element of they did really love that place, and I think it stayed with them for a lot of players of that team. That moment in time kind of lingered with them, and they felt that that's where they played their best football and they had their biggest shine. So they came back. And unfortunately, when the team folded again in 2012 and got reestablished, then Claudio Bonomi became the manager.
He just can't stay away. He just needs to keep eating from the same Marcello's Tavern, doesn't he?
And it's funny you say that, because actually he owns Marcella's Tavern now.
Well, fantastic.
So unfortunately, Marcella's not there anymore. She's not the proprietor. But
They must have some amazing truffles in those mountains.
But it's just, to me, that is the happy ending. Like, is when you do that research and see, like, those players that starred in that fairy tale, actually, it meant something to them and they came back to it and they are still part of that community and that family of the Castel di Sangro. It's not the greatest football story, football-wise, definitely not. But as a story, it just has everything, and you know, you just can't look away. When you pick up that book, I'm telling you, you're not gonna be able to put it down.
But that has been an unbelievable story. I think we come now to the challenge, or maybe not challenging part, depending how you view it, of ranking this team. As a reminder, we have 5 categories of greatness. All-time greats to the top, true greats, our middle category, touch greatness, edge of greatness, and then blinkered greats. Jamie,
village team from rubble of Second World War to the resurrection of Serie B Italian football. It's a beautiful story and almost unbelievable. And it's incredible that an individual like Joe McGuinness was able to jump on board at the most critical point of this football team's history. And how there must be films made in it. You've got Robert Ponick is he's up there from the Ali Dar and the Carlos Kaiser playbook. I mean, it's fantastic. The craziness with the pitch, but there are some amazing characters in it. And again, we're talking about off the field characters. And I think Osvaldo Giacconi is a fascinating individual. And I think the timing of him arriving when Gravina and Reza have put this whole thing together is just wonderfully, beautifully timed. But if we look at on the field results, it's a spectacular story, and they're punching way above their weight. Like a lot of football teams do, there are teams around the world. Hoffenheim incredibly punch way above their weight. Ross County have been their Eibar in Spain. There's not many village people that go on to do exceptionally wonderful things in the world of football, but it does happen, and it's a beautiful story. But I'm going to kick us off, and I can't really look beyond blinkered greats because it is a blinkered great story. I mean, and even then, I think I might be being a bit generous, but I don't know how they fit into the relegation category. I mean, they fit into the relegation category because they get relegated and they go bankrupt. But yeah, I'm going to kick us off tier 5.
Gus, have you got any argument with that?
Well, I was hoping Jamie would argue for something higher, so then I could be because you are the one that pushes for those things, and now I have nowhere to go.
It's a new season. It's a new Jamie.
Well, yeah. So throughout that season and throughout that story, they had touches of greatness, maybe. If the investment in the club was more sustainable, if it was planned, if what happened prompted them to change their way of doing things to maintain that success, then there might have been an edge of greatness, maybe touch of greatness. But yeah, I can't. Football-wise, you can't stress the success. They just managed to remain in Serie B for 2 years. That's it. So.
It feels Blinker Greats is a great fit for it because that really is what they are. I was looking and pondering whether you could make a case for not necessarily great, but without them, we wouldn't be where we are today. But
I think
they didn't really contribute anything else beyond that. They were a great fun story in themselves, and it's an unbelievable achievement.
Yeah, I think Blinking Greats, you created the category just for this. Like, this is the definition of a team for Blinking Greats.
Yeah, the archetypal team for this. So we are saying Castel di Sangro, blinkered. Gus, thank you so much for bringing this story to us. This has been absolutely fantastic. The Robert Panic stuff is just extraordinary. I mean, I don't know what it must have been. I mean, presumably there are some hardcore kind of ultras, some Castel di Sangro ultras. I mean, how pissed off would you be? That moment of elation that you're signing a Premier League striker to find out exactly as you were saying, Gus. There's no. Oh, we've done this, but this is the upside. There was just no upside.
Worst thing is, he's not even a notable actor. He's like a Z-list actor as well. Because if this is the gigs that he's taken on as an actor, I mean, it's just disaster.
Yeah, it just literally just random. Just someone pressed shuffle on what happens next, and things just happen, which makes it for an awesome read. Eventually, I want to visit Castel di Sangro in my life and maybe find one of those ultras if they stayed there. I mean, what did you think of that time? I'm thinking of
and bizarre for the players on the side as well, who they presume. I think the suggestion is they did know what was.
They were in on it. Yeah,
what sort of presumably slightly confused and reluctant.
Yeah, they, as with everything else, they had to kind of go along with what the powers that be told them that was happening.
I mean, the innovation for the penalty kick is brilliant. To run up to take a penalty kick, to then feign a hamstring injury, to fall over and then to see the keeper move, so it opens up the opportunity to get back up and put it into the empty net. It's a brilliant way of taking a penalty kick. It really is.
They should, yeah. You think they should catch on? It's just a nice story.
It is a wonderful story, and I just echo what Graham says. Gus, thank you so much for bringing it to us. I can safely say it was not on our list. It was not on our radar. And we've got a big list of almost 1,000 teams that we try to cherry pick from, and we generally come up with teams that aren't on it. This wasn't on it.
No, thank you guys. Thank you for having me again, and my weird fascination with obscure teams. I have a few others. I will send you some emails. See if you fancy some obscure in between your big ones.
I think you've definitely cemented your position as our underdog correspondent, Gus.
Privilege. It's a privilege. Thank you, guys.
Excellent. Thanks for coming on. Thank you, Jamie, as ever.
Yes, awesome. Absolutely fascinating. It was good to kind of just kick back and listen to the story unfold rather than having the responsibility of trying to tell it and fail miserably as I do.
Excellent. Good stuff. That's all for this week. We'll be back next time.